Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k Book Club. This is episode number 22, in which we're discussing Mark of Faith by Rachel Harrison. I'm Jen Bozier.
And I'm Carrie Honey.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. Every episode, we select a book from the Black Library's Warhammer 40,000 catalog. We post the book on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, along with questions to ponder during reading. Listeners are able to read the book and then tune in and hear our discussion. We encourage participation via Twitter, the site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning. If you haven't yet read the book, go to the site, check out the book and the questions, and then come back to this episode as we'll be discussing the plot from start to finish in great detail. As mentioned this episode, we're reaching Mark of Faith by Rachel Harrison. The story is about a sister of the Adeptus Sororitas and an inquisitor who are set upon their journey to rescue the shield of St. Catherine from beyond the rift. We posed ourselves several questions, so let's dive in. And I'm actually going to break tradition, and I'm going to start this time in saying whether or not we like it, because I've given this a lot of thought. It's a complicated answer. You guys, so we have been driving. It's an hour drive to and from Boulder for a hockey tournament all weekend, and I have been thinking a lot about this. And I've ultimately decided that this book is very strange to me because I liked the book, despite hating both of the main characters and being grossly disappointed that I figured out the plot twists in like the first 40 pages. I still liked the book. I don't know how that works. Did you like the book?
No. And I know I tweeted something very similar. I liked the concept. I liked the characters were well written and they were very well developed. And the characters were good characters, whether I liked them or not. They were good characters, and like the build-up was incredible, the world was incredible, but the predictable plot it killed it. It absolutely killed it for me.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk a lot about that later because I feel as though I'm not sure that you can talk about this book without that. In fact, let's talk about the parts that stood out to us, and then we might just jump ahead to the big reveal because I feel like it's so integral to everything we're going to be talking about tonight. So first off, let's start with the good. What parts really stood out to you?
The first part stood out to me was, I have a feeling we're going to have different page numbers because we read different editions.
Right.
But it was when Evangeline talking to the head novator, the navigator.
Yes.
And she mentioned, that she wasn't going to survive this next jump. And she was like, but she's, the Inquisitor, Ari, she said she saw you there. And she was just like, oh, honey, like she was just saying things so that I would do it. And Ava was getting mad. And what I wrote down was, you cannot hate her for it any more than you can hate a falcon for trying to fly. And I was like, okay, that kind of gave me chills because in so many ways it was like so forgiving for a navigator. Just to be like, yeah, she, I'm not going to live this. I know this. She lied. She's an Inquisitor. Of course she did.
Well, I loved that. That was actually the number one thing that I was going to go to as well, that scene, because it was so wonderful. But my favorite part of that was actually when she just, again, I heard it in that same tone that you said it, in that, oh, bless your heart tone of voice. But
it kind of like my grandmother, kind of reaching out and just saying, it's like, you can't get mad at this, like, or, just saying it's okay.
Yes. The thing that I liked, though, is when she says, and I'm trying to see if I can find the part that she says, but she says that you can't hate her for it, that the God Emperor created her to lie, just as he created you to fight, and he created me to sail the stars. Just like this idea that there was this forgivingness to it, but just this acceptance. Like, look, she is who she is. It reminds me of that the old parable with the turtle and the scorpion. It's in my nature. Like, right. It's in the Inquisitor's nature. That's what they do. And that was the exact thing that I was going to go to first, because it's a short, I mean, it's only like 2 paragraphs, but it's a beautiful interaction.
Oh,
Just
honestly,
beautiful.
everything with this navigator, when they first saved her, was every scene
Mm.
with her was just amazing.
Oh yeah.
Like, she's probably the first navigator I can say I've actually liked.
Okay. Well, okay, to be fair, we haven't seen like we've seen the super political crazy like look at me dripping in jewels. And then we saw the one from Knights of Macragge,
Well, I'm not
you
even
know.
just thinking of that, but I'm thinking of, like, gosh, like even Eisenhorn. Like, that
Right.
astropath navigator was weird. Like, just like, and everyone talked about how they don't like being near them. But she seemed one, like, maybe you feel weird, but you wouldn't mind being near her because she just seems so nice.
Right. Yeah, she seemed that whole sequence though, because the next thing that really stood out to me was that demon fight when they get in there, the mirror demon. And I
Mm.
think I told you it was so well described. And I don't know if any of our listeners played a game called The Wolf Among Us, but there was this fight where Bigby has to fight Bloody Mary. And because she comes out of a mirror, the sound design for that level is so good. She has this weird, echoey, like breathy voice, and everywhere she walks, it makes this cracking glass noise. So as I read that section, I was getting chills because I could just hear that Bloody Mary noise. And when the demon spoke, so a lot of, and that whole scene is just wonderful. The fighting scene, Evangeline's internal dialogue, and just watching the sisters in action against this awful thing. It's I jokingly call them nuns with guns, but it was, I mean, it's amazing. There are these tough women of faith just throwing themselves at this demon. It was, I read it, it was just like,
You know, the whole nuns and, I'm going to remove like bolter bitches. And after reading this book, it's going to be nuns with guns. And the reason why is because everything that these women were doing, all I could see was these heavy links to Catholicism. And
oh my God,
and
yes.
it reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever read this book, but it's a historically based fiction novel about Lady Guinevere. And it talked about, when Arthur found her, and she had to, because she came from this religion of the goddess, and
Mm-hmm.
Arthur, had aligned with the Catholic monks. And one thing she always said about them is that, because she said with her religion they revered the beauty and everything. And she's like, the monks, she's like, they shave their heads, they wear all brown, everything's just ugly and misery, misery, misery. And
Mists of Avalon.
that wasn't the name of this book, actually.
Oh, because that they deal heavily with that in that book.
Oh, that's interesting. No, this was actually just called Guinevere.
Oh, okay.
Um, that always stuck with me, and
Mm-hmm.
and I have friends who are Catholics, but every time, like, if you look into like hardcore high Catholicism, it is very
Mm-hmm.
much this whole thing of misery, misery, misery. And so I couldn't get away from that. So yes, they are nuns with guns.
Well, the thing that my husband said that I was like, you're probably right, is he said like you could go to a Catholic nun and probably hand them this book and replace the God Emperor with Jesus Christ. And they would probably be like, absolutely yes.
Mm.
Um, it's just, and that was the one thing. There's a beauty to the sisters that I just absolutely love with them talk with Evangeline singing and
Yeah.
then praying and all of this stuff. And you can imagine like if you if you were a chaos cultist, that might be a little scary to see these women. And the thing that I love about them too is that they are not post-human. They are not Adeptus Astartes. They
Mm-mm.
have power armor, which lends them strength, but these are just regular ass women. And just this beauty in their armor and their prayer scrolls and their singing and their devotion. That is the one thing. I don't know if you read the afterword by Rachel
I
Harrison
did
at the
not.
end.
Actually, I didn't have one.
Oh, huh. Well, that's a real bummer. I'll have to find a way to get the afterword to you because it is beautiful. And basically, she says that she found this piece of art. And if you, for those of you listening and not watching, it's just the standard piece of art of the woman with the white hair and the armor, the
Yep.
Adeptus Sororitas. And she said that she found it and she just was struck by it. And what a powerful image it was, which I agree.
Yeah, see, I don't even have that image. I just double checked, and no, it's the ending. It goes to acknowledgments about the author and scene. So, so that was a
Step it
limited.
up, Black Library.
So that was a limited edition. Whoop. Special.
Set that anywhere. It's beautiful what she says about the faith in it, and it's so strong because, like, I think I've gone back and forth, and we've talked about this on this podcast a lot, where I go back and forth on the whole: do I think the emperor should be worshipped as a god? Do I think there's any divinity to it? And I get to the end of this book, and I'm like, yes, no, for sure, 100%, 100%.
I have to admit, I kind of got that way too. I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm kind of seeing the divinity in this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's hard not to, right? I'm trying to think. There was another thing. My brain is fried after this whole week. Oh, so the other thing that stuck out to me, and on one hand, I'm so sick of seeing. I want to be sick and tired of seeing Thousand Sons who are just trying to reverse the rubric, but it gets me in the feelers every time. And when they kill Amanthus's friend and he's laying by his corpse and all he says is he's like, I just wanted to hear his voice again. This concept of, and it was so heartbreaking because his struggle was mirrored with Ari's, which is not at all short for Ahriman's struggle. And they were this mirror for each other.
Nudge, nudge.
See what they did? But just what I got to that and was like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. You're on the wrong side, but I'm so sorry. That was, and it was, again, it's like a paragraph.
Right. And I thought that whole thing was a very beautiful, because I remember, like, I snickered when they got to this part, and Ari's like, I'm nothing like you. And he's like, really? Really?
The Thousand Sons are always sassy.
I mean, yeah, that's probably why I like
sassy
them.
Sorcerers.
That's probably why I like them so much. I mean, he's like, here I am willing to sacrifice everybody here to reverse this, and didn't you lead them here because you knew you were going to sacrifice all of them too?
Yeah. Pretty much.
So, I mean, that just kind of brought all sorts of smiles to my face. I was like, yeah, take that, you Inquisitor bitch. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could pretty much picture them doing a Z-snap too, because they're Thousand Sons and they're sassy.
It's like, even like in the end, after he's defeated, she's still keeps going forward with like what he would do.
Oh yeah, she's still like, yep, nope, this is totally good. So organizing thoughts here. Let's jump ahead really quick and talk about the big reveal. Trademark. Like, I think I told you I was 40 or 50 pages in, and I was like, oh, it's going to be 1,000. It's the Thousand Sun Sorcerer. It's going to be some warp bullshit that's going on here, and they need Sofika to do something.
I wasn't sure if it was the exact Thousand Sons guy that they saw, because I couldn't remember if they had actually killed him or defeated him or whatever. But I knew this was an agent of Tzeentch. I mean, when you're seeing dead people talking to you and nobody else sees it, that's Tzeentch. I feel like I should be singing, singing Amore there, but it's true. It's like so many things like that. The first Mephiston book that I read, right, where they had, the prince, the unborn prince. I'm like, my God, this is some Tzeentch shit going on.
Yep.
Yeah. Just
because it is always Tzeentch. If I were to give Rachel, I'm sure she's sitting on with bated breath waiting for unsolicited advice from a tech product manager. The one thing I would say is that I would advise her to trust her audience a little bit more. If you compare this, so in Spear of the Emperor, remember when they first arrive on the planet, when Amadeus and Honorata first get there, they're like, the Emperor's spears are like, oh yeah, we sassed the Inquisition and now they're trying to kill us. And it never gets mentioned again, right? So then at the end, when it's the Inquisition, you're like, oh, they told us this was what was going on too. I think had she mentioned the Thousand Sun Sorcerer and then never said it again.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that like in those first 40 pages, he gets mentioned like 3 times. So I was like, no, I get it. It's the Thousand Suns guy. I get it. It's that sorcerer. I pretty much figured it was. And then when she talks to her dad and he's like, oh, if you go and kill allow the sister to sacrifice herself, your girlfriend will be made whole again. The God Emperor doesn't care about that. Come on.
No.
Come on, that's Sage. And I felt as though I understood, and we'll talk more about this. I understood her desperation, but I was kind of disappointed that an Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor wasn't more questioning of Daddy telling her.
Well, the thing with the Ordo Hereticus is that, they see everybody else's flaws. They don't see their own. And, how many cases have we seen where the Ordo Hereticus are willing to sacrifice thousands of people to get this one thing that they want?
Right. And no, absolutely.
It's like one, my favorite short stories, I keep talking about Eisenhorn, but my favorite short stories was the Keeler image. And, when he goes to find this image because he's hoping to catch this one person, not realizing that the Ordo Hereticus set this entire thing up just to find him, and we're willing to let this criminal, this guy that Eisenhower's been looking for, go because they want one man. And they killed thousands of innocent people in there.
Yeah.
But what does it matter? Because we wanted this one person.
Yeah, we needed to get this one dude.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. They definitely subscribe to the omelets and eggs philosophy.
Except that they like to do a lot of test eggs.
Hey, man, you got to, like, break a whole bunch to perfect an omelet, okay, to get that perfect fluff.
Right.
It's like the Japanese style omelets. Yeah, no, pretty much. I mean, they are a callous bunch. And I know that you and I have talked about that a bit, but the big question I would ask about the reveal, did it gel with the story?
Okay, I have a really big question.
Okay.
So obviously, this whole thing with the conduit is what Amenthus wanted to set up so that he could, get his WH40k brothers back. What did she think the conduit was, and what did she want with it?
My understanding is that she thought it was going to be something that would close the rift, that would fix the rift, make the God Emperor come back. I don't know what that means. Like, they were pretty vague about that, honestly, because remember when she goes to when she's talking on Terra, she says something about how, like, this is going to wake up the Emperor or something like that. So I don't know if that she thought it was just going to close the rift entirely, because she is a little vague, and they mention a couple things there.
Which is kind of not what a conduit does.
I just work here. I merely read. You know what? And that was the thing that I was a little confused about too. And it was a little frustrating to me because I went back and reread like certain of her chapters because I was like, oh man, I must have just like not processed it right. So some of these chapters in this book I read twice. She says at one point, it says like she thinks the God Emperor is going to come back, and then she thinks the rift is going to close. I don't know.
The weird thing is, I got that all kind of muddled together though, because
yeah.
Because then she keeps talking about the conduit is definitely here, and she doesn't talk about the God Emperor anymore. She's thinking about Sophie. So it all got kind of muddled, because then at one point, like probably like about 3/4 away of the book, I was like, wait, what did she think it was before this happened to Sophie? Because it just never was that clear.
Right. And to me, it felt like an attempt at the MacGuffin. She was definitely looking for a MacGuffin. And I don't know if that was intentional on Rachel Harrison's part, and that it's like this thing that she has gotten so corrupted's not the right word, but twisted and just fixated on fixing Sofika that she it doesn't matter. And that somehow, like, she starts off being like, oh, this is going to close the rift or help the emperor. This is going to help mankind. And then slowly but surely, because she gets so fixated and kind of corrupted, I guess, that it becomes Sofika.
Yeah,
and
she
now
does get corrupted.
Right. Well, pretty much awkward. Like at the end of the book, that was actually one of my first thoughts. Is I was like, you would be killing you over this, like if this were anybody else. But do as I say.
So okay, I got another question.
Okay.
Is this really the Ordo Hereticus's job to try to close the rift?
One of the things that you and I have been talking a lot about is this concept of absolute power corrupting absolutely with the Inquisition. I think the Inquisition is so power drunk at this point that they're fixing all kinds of problems because they found a solution. And
problems, I got air quotes going for the podcast.
Fixing, like the air quotes are massive around fixing. And one of the things we talked about is how they actually can end up doing a whole lot of damage because they wield such power with unquestioning. She shows up and it's just like Inquisition, and everyone's like, ooh, okay, do what you got to do, man. It's I don't know. And I think, Eisenhorn was guilty of that too. He starts Ordo Xenos. By the end of the book, he's Ordo Eisenhornus because he's just trying to fix all the problems. I guess in some ways the Inquisition's kind of the hammer to which everything looks like a nail. Like they're going to fix everything. And somehow she, through her dreams, must have gotten fixated on this. And no, I don't think that is what Ordo Hereticus is supposed to be doing. But to be fair, I guess it would fall under Ordo Malleus, probably.
Yeah, that's like some Grey Knight shit, to be honest. But anyway, again, Ordo Hereticus, I know best. I'm just going to go
I'm an Inquisitor.
Thing, right?
I'm an Inquisitor. Yeah, I'm an Inquisitor and I see dreams. So,
yeah, I found it funny that after the incident, she didn't have those dreams anymore. I was like, oh yeah, Tzeentch has been fucking with you for a long time.
Oh, pumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keep in mind, Tzeentch plays the long game. Like the long game.
The Inquisition just thinks they play the long game.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, so after reading Rites of Passage, you remember in Rites of Passage, one of my favorite things was when that Inquisitor is basically like, you guys think you know political games and fucking people over? You have no idea. Then it was really funny to me because it's like, that was like the big fish eating the little goldfish. And then in this book, it was the shark coming along. Like, oh, you think you know games? My sweet summer child.
The Thousand Sons have nothing but time.
Nothing but time.
And actually, you could probably say that about all of the Traitor Legions. They have nothing but time.
Exactly. Oh my god. So, but jumping over really quick, abrupt change to Sister Evangeline is a character in crisis. Did you like her? Did you understand her? Do you sympathize with her?
I understood her at first. Because as someone who does not like being in the spotlight, I could totally understand the awkwardness of, you didn't die, you now have the mark of the Aquila on your face, and everyone's pointing and staring at you. I can just imagine like how awkward that feels, and everyone's now looking to you to have all the answers when you're not sure that you even have answers yourself.
Right.
No matter what your mentor told you, you're still not feeling that you're supposed to be leading. So I understood that. I totally got that 100%. But then the whining got old.
Yes. I would agree with that. And similarly, those first couple chapters, I can't imagine what that had to be like. Like, I don't have a frame of reference for it. Your mother figure, the woman who basically raised you, dead. All of your best friends, the women who you considered to be your sisters, dead. Except for Ashava. She's the only one who survived. And I can't imagine what that's like. And then all of a sudden you go from being this young green sister who is in no way deserving. You have this mark on you. People are making the Aquila when they see you. It's, I can't imagine what that was like. And then she just keeps going and going and going. And by the end of the book, and I was actually very happy at the end of the book when she declares herself Repentia, because about the midway point, I'm like, honey, the emperor clearly chose you. Your mother, your sister superior chose you, and you're questioning them, questioning it.
So
Like
it's like
that is
some
straight up heresy.
some severe imposter syndrome.
Severe imposter syndrome. And okay, so here's one of the things I'm going to say, and this is a mild soapbox, but I really struggle with female characters, strong female characters, because they have this problem. And I think you see it very starkly in this book. On one hand, you have Evangeline, who's the, oh, I'm not worthy. I feel so hollow. I feel so empty. I'm an imposter. And then you have Rivara, who is the, I know everything. I'm fucking right. Fall in line. And there has to be an emotion somewhere in between that. And this is a problem that extends beyond books. They've done studies for years, like in business. If a man is confident and somewhat pushy in work, oh, well, then he's a good leader. If a woman is confident and someone pushy, she's a bitch. That's a social phenomenon. But I really dislike that books. It's like you either have this obnoxiously arrogant character or you have somebody who's just self-flagellating. There's nothing in between. And we have so many big series like Twilight. Yeah, I just brought up Twilight. And The Hunger Games, Katniss. If you read the books, Katniss Everdeen is like that, the whole series. Oh, people are just being nice to me because they want something. Like they don't understand that I'm not this good and I'm really not this great of a fighter. And there was this awful series called Rhapsody, the Rhapsody series. Bless your hearts if you know what I'm talking about. Same thing. That character spends the whole time, oh, I don't know why everyone keeps looking at me. I don't deserve this honor.
And then we had the third stereotype with the strong woman in this, and that is the angry one.
Yes. You have the snarling, angry, everything is wrong.
Huge, big chips on shoulders.
Yes. There's just no shoulders. They've been chipped off. Kyo, I had a very strong reaction to her. I liked and disliked her at the same time. I did like that she was this angry, snarling, and then when Evangeline finally says, I feel hollow, I feel like I don't deserve this, then all of a sudden you see this, oh shit, we are alike. Like, I like that moment, but the fact that she was never called to task for some of her BS.
Oh, and I mean, how many times does she disobey orders, break ranks?
If she were a space marine, she'd be dead.
Oh, yeah.
Or sent off to Medjugorje with her best friend. Because, well, I mean, I make the joke, but I'm pretty serious. Those guys didn't even get anyone killed. They helped. But space books say that bad.
Well, I'm kind of also thinking of the Primaris from Knights of Macragge, you know, the asshole. Who did break orders, and finally his leader in the Primaris was like, okay, we're going to have a chat.
We need to have a come to Jesus.
Which is, you know, in the rings, in their little arenas down there. So, you know, he pretty much literally got his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that would have been the bare minimum, I would have thought.
I was a little surprised by that. And just her constant, I'm so hollow. But then on the other hand, like when she talks with the navigator, right, and she prays with her, there's just, she would demonstrate these feats, like, and I would call them feats of just inner strength and this beauty and this divinity. And that, the whole end scene, when she keeps hearing Adeline in her head going, stand, and she keeps getting up and that light coming off of her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was reading the book just like, oh my gosh, the whole time. So I liked her and I didn't like her at the same time, you know?
I have to say that scene reminded me of Bambi. You know what scene I'm talking about?
I know what scene you're talking about. Why you gotta be?
Hey, I liked that scene.
I actually, when I was reading it, what I pictured her looking like in that scene is, I don't know if you saw the movie Stardust.
Mm-mm.
It's a wonderful movie. There, what's her face? Claire Danes plays a star, a fallen star, and a literal star that's fallen to Earth. And at one point, whenever she gets happy, she starts to shine, and this light comes off of her. And one of the key points at the end is when she shines, and that's all I pictured was Evangeline, just this beautiful aura and this light coming off of her, and it was so pretty in my head.
Or, you know, if you want to go the Twilight route, like a little sparkly vampire.
Get out. Good God.
Well,
I'm
Bella.
like, look at this beautiful thing. And you're like, let me set it on fire.
Well, she's like Bella, and Bella became a vampire at the end, so, you know.
Anyways.
Bella sparkled. Yes, I've read them.
Of course, you have to know your enemy.
Exactly.
I've read all of them too. They were awful. The interesting thing about Evangeline, though, or we'll talk about that here. We'll talk about that here in a bit. Let's switch gears real quick and go to Rivara. Also a character in Crisis.
Don't care.
That's a great conversation starter.
Well, I mean, you know, honestly, when we get to what her crisis is, I was just like, oh, I don't care. I do not care about your problems right now. Because you are incredibly selfish for an Inquisitor.
Yeah. Oh, she's selfish by Inquisitor standards, even. I'm like even Eisenhorn.
That's what I mean. Like, for an Inquisitor, you are selfish. I mean, just, yeah. I mean, you're Inquisitor.
Even Eisenhorn would be like, bitch, slow down.
Right. Slow your roll.
Like, and I think I've established my feelings on Eisenhorn. Holy cow. Like, oh my God. So, but in many ways, she's anathema to Evangeline. You have Evangeline who is self-sacrificing and selfless, overly so, right? Yes. And you have Rivara who just me. We've established that neither of us liked her. Did you understand her?
No. No. Because again, when it kind of pieced together what was going on, like, no, I don't get it. And maybe that means, like, I don't love my husband. You know?
Well, there's loving your spouse, and then there's willing to sacrifice, I mean, at that point, a planet to bring back your spouse who you got killed.
But, you know, but I'm also thinking, you know, the Medicaid who kept telling her, like, I told you to let her go. She can't live like this. She's in constant pain.
Yes.
At that point, like, that is 100% for you. It is not for Sophie. Because honestly, the best thing would have been to let Sophie go, because then there's no conduit.
That too. But you're not wrong. And that, so on one hand, so at one point when they talk about her, right, and like how when you finally get into Rivara's mind, and she talks about how this is the one person who ever cared about her and knew everything about her and still loved her, and the one person she trusted, and all of this, right?
Oh, and just forget her dad.
Right, but as she's explaining that, I was like, I understand, but you're fucking wrong, and you're awful. And it was love, but in a very selfish way. And I have no doubt if you asked Rivara, she would tell you that, oh, no, I just totally love her. But I couldn't get away from the fact that because every time she would talk about like, oh, she knows me and she loves me, blah blah blah, and also she interprets my dreams and I kind of need that. Like, she loved her as a very, it reminded me a lot of like how I picture the emperor loving the primarchs, whereas that you're my favorite tool
So I actually
of
made a
all of my
note.
toys, you're my favorite.
I made a note in here that said I can't determine if Rivara loves Sofika or just needs her.
I think it's a little bit of both, and I think that it was a very unhealthy codependent relationship. um I could not get past the fact that you were torturing this woman by keeping her alive
Because you couldn't let her go.
because you can't let her go. It reminds me a lot of, and I want to make it very clear that I understand there's a big difference between a person and a pet. But like, the people who their animals are in pain, and like when you see people who have dogs or cats who can't walk anymore, and oh, but I just need to keep my cat with me because I love her so much, and it's like, you need to let that animal go now. The thing has no quality of life, it's in pain, and this is worse because it's a person. I really strong opinions on that, and the fact that, yeah, this woman has no quality of life, and you're just keeping her alive to make yourself feel better because you feel guilty, because you need her, and because you don't want to give up this one person who ever understood you. I got an idea. Maybe if you stop mind wiping all of your servants, somebody else might fall in love with you too. I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah.
But that's for their sake. Because if they remembered what they saw, they'd go nuts. Oh, it's bullshit. It's all because it's all her.
Yeah.
It's
It's all,
it's something she can do to control them. That's all that it is.
and I think she can fall back on that. She can rest on her laurels saying, oh, well, I'm doing it to save them. And okay, maybe. But even in the end, you learn from Daniel, you learn that he's like, oh yeah, the guy with the serpent mask. I've been dreaming about that. And she's like, oh.
But I also look back at earlier Inquisitors. So let's go back to Eisenhorn and Ravener, who had regular people in their retinue that they didn't mind wipe every time they saw a demon or a traitor marine.
Mm-hmm. That we know of.
Instead,
but still,
what did they do? They kept him closer.
Yes. Like, well, and again, and I
Like,
always
oh,
got the impression
you saw a traitor marine. All right. Well, you can't leave.
you're stuck here now.
Right.
Well, and the reason that I always figured that is that, and I think, oh, what book was it? I don't think it's Crowell who says it. It might have been Crowell. It was either that or it was a different Inquisitor in a Dan Abnett story. It might have been the guy from the Brothers of the Snake book. Anyways, an Inquisitor had once said, he was talking about his retinue, and he basically was like, yeah, this is not a long life expectancy. Like, serving an Inquisitor it doesn't have a great retirement plan. I mean, it doesn't. I always got the impression that Eisenhorn and Ravener didn't really need to do that because they're like, you might live 200 years, you might live 2. Who knows? Like, something's going to kill you eventually, or you'll go crazy and I got to put you down like old Yeller.
Right. But at the same time, both of them, I know you're gonna go against me on this, but they saw the retinue though. Yes, they were tools, but they were still people. And I know, poor Fishig. Yes, I know you're gonna go there.
Justice for Fishig.
Okay, well let's just focus on Ravener.
Yes.
That these were people.
Yes.
And
Ravener especially. And I actually get that impression with Crowell too, because when they talked about outside of Spinoza, his retinue, his people, you got the impression that these were trusted humans. And maybe he's not like BFFs going out drinking with him every night, but he is, at least, I got the impression he was at least cognizant that these are people.
Mm-hmm.
Valuable people to me. I did not get that impression with Rivara. But I think that was, again, that goes towards that, I'm going to use the phrase that I hate, but unfortunately it really did describe her, that Ice Queen trope, right? I have the person I love and everybody else is expendable garbage to me.
Well, I even loved it, because Mia pissed when she found out Sophie was still alive, and she just kind of disappeared in the ship. Like no one
Yeah.
saw her except for Zorak,
Except for Daniel.
right? And when she finally showed up, um, immediately Ari's like, you know, there's gonna be a punishment for that, right? I was like, bitch, you just slow your roll.
Seriously. Oh my God. And in the beginning, when the doctor is like, you have to let Sophika go, and she's like, Lord, you will address me by my title. Oh
And not
man.
only that, and she, tells him, he's like, you can't, when he tells her you can't move her, she's not going to survive the trip. And she said, she didn't survive the trip, you're going to be, then I'm killing you. It's like, okay.
So on that note, both Rivara and Evangeline have surrounded themselves with strong people.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think we both said that we didn't like the main characters that much, but we loved the supporting cast. I fell in love with so many characters in this book.
Yeah, I liked Ashava a lot.
Who was your favorite?
Mia. Hands down.
Mia was your favorite?
Mm-hmm.
I am torn between Daniel and Ashava. Or even Olivia, the canoness.
Yeah.
Who,
yeah.
That woman, man, I like the cut of her jib. Like, as soon as they were like, yeah, she doesn't do the whole ceremony thing.
Yeah,
like,
I thought that was pretty cool.
I was like, I like you. I thought she was really cool. Ashava was just.
I think Reboot would like her. Just for the not wanting to do ceremony.
Yeah, absolutely. She'd be like, can we just not? And he'd be like, yes, let's not. I thought she was a great character. I loved Ashava too.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved Yumiya too. I thought she was so fun. I mean, straight up fun with those kill cords.
Oh my God.
Just, oh man.
Because I was the whole time, every battle scene with her with those kill cords, I was like, this is a video game that needs to happen right now.
Oh my God, yes. Actually, you know what's really funny is I was describing her and I was like, she's so cool. I was talking to my husband and I was like, and she does this and she does that. And I was like, she's like, and he looks at me and he goes, she's female Kratos. And I was like, yes, she is. So if you played the God of War series, the way you throw those chains around, I was like, she is femme Kratos.
She's not as angry.
Yeah. Yo, well, yeah, for sure. Although at the end there, she's not exactly happy.
No, but she stayed alive and she still has Zorak, and so it's all good.
And I loved those two. I loved that they kept, even after all these mind wipes, they kept drifting toward each other. And there's a conversation in there, which I was actually surprised for Rivara, when she's talking with Yumiya and Yumiya's looking at her hands. And she says that she made a hand gesture that was so similar to Zorak that Rivara didn't realize just quite how much affection these two have for each other. And I was like, oh, that's such a nice character beat for all three of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashava is just so wonderful. I mean, what a wonderful right hand.
Like that's the best friend that you need, that anybody would need. This person who's going to be that strong and that supportive.
Oh yeah, and with her walking,
mm-hmm.
and when they're just like, yeah, they could have taken my legs, but no. I was like, okay, like this woman's on a mission from the God Emperor, literally. They were all so good, and I just loved them, except for Kyo. I was not a fan of her. Would the book have been as enjoyable without them?
No.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to agree with you on that.
Because at least, so there were like some sparks of joy and entertaining. Like, again, I'm not saying that Evangeline and Rivara were written badly and they're not good characters. They are good characters. I just don't like them.
Right. And I could see how some people, like my husband loved them both. He loved the whole book. He really, really liked Evangeline. So I could see how, I think it also depends on what you bring into the book with you, like what other things that you've read and your styling. but those characters, having them surrounded with such strong characters was such a smart move on her part,
Mm-hmm.
because it really did make it feel like, on one hand, this was a book about Rivara and Evangeline, but it made it feel like more of an ensemble piece, especially in that final battle. I don't know if you noticed, but it was tit for tat. Man, Rivara would do something, and then Zorik and Yumia would jump in and do something, and then they would flash over to Evangeline, and Ashava and Kyo and Eugenia are doing things. And so everybody got this little sunshine moment of, look at this person kick ass.
Right.
Which was so cool. Just loved it.
And
so I think that was...
until Ari had to go ruin it all.
Yeah.
And Ava even asked her, she's like, just let me go save her. It's like, for you or for her? And what does Ari immediately think? What would make her happy?
Right. Oh, for her, obviously.
Right. This is not for me.
So let me ask you this. Did you like Sofika as a character?
I feel like I didn't get to know her.
You don't really. And that was one thing that I didn't like as much, because all of these people, I could feel that she must have been a cool character because Zorik and Yumia were so very attached to her. Mm-hmm. Rivara loves her deeply in her own Inquisitor way. So she must have been cool. I could tell you the color of her eyes. Sorry, that was Mountain Sky. I was a little sick of reading. But I don't think I really knew her as a character. She just sounded as this very patient mirror for Rivara. I think why Rivara liked her so much.
Yeah, could be.
She was just not. God.
At least at the end, she said she had to go.
Yes.
And would not let Rivara talk her into staying. She's like, no, because if I stay, then this is all going to open up. And, maybe a bigger rift.
Which reminded me of the ending of Final Fantasy X. When they kill Sin. And Titus is like, I have to go now.
I still never did finish that game.
Spoiler alert on a 20-year-old game.
Spoiler alert for a, 20-year-old game?
Yes. At least. I'm trying to think. It depends on where we were living when we played that. And I want to say we were still living in Lodo.
I think I was in grad school. So just because I remember I was a teaching assistant, and one of my fellow teaching assistants, she had just gotten a PlayStation 2. So this was this was 2001. So it's about 19 years.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe it was only 18 or 19 years old. Yeah. And yeah, it just reminded me of that. When they have to kill Sin, and she's begging Titus to stay, and he's like, well, I can't, because with Sin, if you want Sin to be gone permanently, I gotta go too. And yeah. Anyways. Throwback to not a very good Final Fantasy game.
Well, I guess I'm not finishing it ever now.
You're welcome.
It's like Final Fantasy VII. I already know the ending to that too. I'm not gonna finish that either.
I didn't ruin that one for you. Just so we're clear.
No. So when did that one come out? 1990.
6 or 7, because it must have been 7, because I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And
I just remember seeing commercials for it in college, and we were all like, graphics will never be better than this.
That was still Code Veronica for me. When that beginning cutscene, when she drops the gun and she falls and catches it, and we would invite people to our house and load it up, and everyone would be like, oh my God, they're never going to get better than this. And you go back and you watch them now and you're like,
oh, cringe.
Yet it's so bad. I cried in that game. Anyways, video games aside, I guess I didn't really feel like Sofika, my only complaint about not really knowing Sofika is that I was angry at Rivara for torturing this poor woman, but I didn't really feel like I knew her as a character, and I'm not sure that we were supposed to.
No.
Really.
I think it would have taken way too much else.
Right.
It just would have been extra padding, which there already was a padding problem.
There was quite a bit of padding, yes. I would have a cat bothering me right now. There was, yeah, I would agree with that. So interestingly enough, and here coming to the meat of our conversation, because this is particularly interesting to me. We've been in the last, 6 months, we have read 3 books that could be described solely based around faith in Warhammer 40k. Saint Celestine, this, and Apocalypse. So it's interesting to me because let's look at our good character. Let's look at our truly faithful characters.
I was gonna say, I thought they're like, we don't do good here.
We don't, and I forgot that we're going to talk about a Matnum, and he was a good character. He was not a good person.
No.
So I think Rivara and him could have had tea. Anyways, like, how do Evangeline's, a Matnum's, and Celestine's faith journeys compare?
Did a Matnum have a faith journey? I guess
I would say yes, because remember, his whole thing is that he's trying to get glory for the gods. And remember at the end when he's like, oh yeah, you might not be alive to see the gods' favor, but you got it.
Right.
And his faith, I mean, his and Celestine's faith were almost mirrors for each other. And just this unquestioning devotion and belief and the strength that they get from it. Whereas Evangeline, a sister, she questions it constantly. Not necessarily her faith in the Emperor, but she kind of does question it as she was the chosen one, and she constantly questions that. Which I felt was interesting, because Celestine does not question it, really. Her journey is different. A Matnum never questions it. He knows that he's faithful.
In Celestine's journey, the interesting thing about that is that she does it every single time she dies.
Yeah.
She doesn't remember who she is, what she's doing, but she knows she has to go somewhere or she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, God, that's really hard, because that's so hard to compare. Because especially because when she finds pieces of her armor, she gets these flashbacks of like her past deaths and what she does. In so many ways, I feel like Evangeline doesn't have that kind of a sign.
Right. Well, she does have a mark on her face.
But I wonder, like, how much of her is like, is it really a blessing from the Emperor, or is that just happens to be where the scars are from when I was burned?
I wondered about that too, but then in the end there, when they talk about that light coming off of her and her this, I was like, oh yeah.
No, I mean, right. Although I have to say, when the shield disappeared, and then suddenly she's like, oh wait, it was never a shield, we're the shields. I'm like, how badly are we reaching now to try to explain what's going on? I started to wonder a little bit if, it's true. Tzeentch did manipulate her to be there because they needed the sacrifice of the sisters to make this work. But I started wondering, like, well, how much of this was played? Like, did he do the mark because he knew everybody would flock to her and they'd go to this area, which I could totally see him doing. He wouldn't care.
I went down that same path as well, because you can't trust anything when Tzeentch is involved. It's kind of like the Alpha Legion. As soon as they get mentioned, you're like, okay, nothing is what it seems anymore. But I decided that ultimately, I think she just fit into his plan, because she was already on this path. I think Tzeentch then grabbed Rivara and plugged her into it. Was basically like, that right there, that's exactly what we need. She's coming to us. Let's make it happen. Right? Because remember, he pretty much knows all of the threads of fate that are moving. So it made sense to me that he was basically moving he was working to accommodate her. And what better sacrifice than a hyper powerful psyker and one of the Emperor's chosen? If it works for Karn, it can work for him. It's funny because Karn kills Celestine. Yeah, I think hers was legit. I really do think that she had. Now, was it because whatever they were doing was just so bad? The Emperor was like, get her to stop this dude. I don't care what else. Go and stop this dude. Like, this is some bad shit. That I don't know. I don't know how much fate was playing, how much of it was the Emperor, how much of it was Tzeentch.
I guess I'm kind of curious. I mean, of course the Emperor would send someone to stop Tzeentch, because I don't think that the conduit would have saved the WH40k. I think it would have made something much worse. Because,
yes.
I mean, because Tzeentch was obviously playing with Amenthus, promising him, like, oh, yes, this will bring them back. When it could have just been, honestly, a giant literal conduit portal for Tzeentch just to come on through and be like, this is good. I am here. Well,
so here's the funny thing about that, is that Amenthus and Rivara were they were the same side, opposite sides of the same coin. They had the same misplaced faith. Because if you remember, the whole reason that we have the Rubric Marines is because Tzeentch, I want to make it very clear that I'm hyper paraphrasing this. Tzeentch basically goes to Ahriman and is like, hey, I can stop the mutation, buddy. And Ahriman's like, oh yeah, totally, let's do it. But he didn't read the fine print. And I feel as though Amenthus is making the same mistake. Like, because remember, he even says to Rivara, he's like, oh, if only you worship the right god.
You know, it kind of reminds me of a nice line from Doctor Strange when he says the warnings come after the spells.
Right. Yes. Pretty much. Mm-hmm. Yes. And you just, I would think that, and I understand that you worship this thing. I actually got the impression for a second there. I was like, oh, what if he's trying? Because when he said that he wanted to fix past mistakes, oh, what if he's going to restore his brother and then go back to being a loyalist thousand son because he's realized the mistake? But then when he was like, oh, if only you worship the true God, I was like, oh, dude, this guy's fucked you guys over so badly. Like, why are you still listening to this guy? Like, did Tzeentch tell you that this was going to work? Because right then and there, maybe take a step back. But he had the same desperation as Rivara. And yet, again, we get to see this man for like 40 pages. I felt more invested in his story or his journey to help his friend than I did in Rivara's.
Oh, 100%.
Because he wasn't torturing his friend to keep them alive.
No, and every single time they killed one of the WH40k and the dust came pouring out, and was like, man.
Me too, actually. I was like, oh, that's an antique. Well, seriously, like, you know, when something old gets broken and you're like, oh man, that's irreplaceable. Like, it was so bad because like these sisters are getting killed and I'm like, that's fine, but man, you couldn't replace that thousand son.
Because there's nothing in his armor but dust.
All is dust. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had that. I don't know. For some reason, it's just so sad to me when they die. I don't know why. I don't even like the Thousand Sons that much. And it breaks my heart.
To me, the Thousand Sons are just such the I can't say tragic hero because they're not heroes, but this is I don't know, like tragic villains, I guess. Just everything,
right?
Just, you know, because they didn't ask they didn't ask for this. It was not part of the plan. Things got made this way for them. I mean, like we've talked sooner. Like if this hadn't happened, if Horus hadn't gotten to Leman Russ, and if Leman had just arrested Magnus and brought him back, we would most likely have a 10th loyalist chapter. 100%. It's just the way that things turned in the end.
Right.
And, you know, when you read Prospero Burns, you know, you find out that they knew it's like, well, we had to get rid of the Space Wolves and we had to get rid of the Psychers. And like, well, we got rid of one. It's okay that the other's still around because we have other plans type thing. So I guess that's why anytime they show up, I feel more for them because they're just so, they're such tragic characters. Gosh, I can't think of words. They're such tragic characters.
They are especially because they are the living definition of the phrase "the road to hell is paved with good intentions."
Right.
Magnus just wanted to tell his dad.
He just wanted to help.
Yeah, he just wanted to help. Yeah, Ahriman he just wanted to help. But yes, so every time they show up, I'm just like, oh God. In fact, with Amenthus talking, just like mentioning like worshiping the true God, dude, buddy, it's like the person who's in an abusive relationship. You just want to be like, there's a place you guys can go. All right. I don't know if it's just not worshiping chaos anymore. Like, you can't go back to the Imperium because that ship has sailed, but just like, I don't know, pick a different god. I don't know.
Yeah, the Imperium's not very forgiving when you make mistakes.
Yeah, and I don't picture Robbie being particularly. Although,
you know, I don't know. Because I think if Mortarion sung a different tune, he would have tried to help him because that is his brother.
Potentially. You know what just dawned on me? Add this to the list of books that does not end with a voicemail to Robbie G.
No, it does not end with a voicemail.
It does not end with another voicemail. Because
crisis is averted.
Crisis averted.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. Where do Rivara and Evangeline go from here? Now, I know that literally she's going to join the Repentia. Ashava is now the new Sister Superior. And Rivara is going to her home planet. Along with Yorick and Zumia, which made me so happy.
Zorik and Yumia. You said Yorick and Zumia.
God dang it! That is like the 5th or 6th time I cannot keep their names. So they're just going to make them a celebrity couple and call them Zumia.
They're just Y and Z.
Y and Z, there we go. Gosh, it's Mia and Daniel. That's why their first names are better. I got the impression she hadn't wiped their memories. Maybe there's a little bit more trust there? Maybe? But where do they go from here?
Well, first of all, her Medicaid who did it is dead. So
yeah, she'd
have to try to find another Medicaid that'd be willing to do that. For starters.
Or just go with the forget me stick.
I don't know where Ari goes from here. I do know I do not care. I
don't think I really do either.
Unless Crowell gets involved and brings her in, because I would be cheering for Crowell and Espinosa and that 100%.
Best crossover ever. Oh my God. Can you imagine Spinoza and Rivara in a room together?
That'd be so great.
Anyways. I'm with you. I care about Y and Z. I want good things to happen to them.
Yes.
I'm really interested in what keeps going on with their story. I don't really. When she was like, "We're going to my home planet," I was like, "Oh, why?" But
is that where you've been assigned to go, or are you just going because?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me that when rudderless, she's like, "All right, we got to go home," because she has nothing else guiding her right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing she's going home and waiting for a sign, but.
Or a dream.
Evangeline is pretty clearly chosen and marked by the Emperor. She has some sort of. I don't know if it's like a one-time thing. Like if you remember, in the in Game of Thrones, the first book, she sets herself on fire. The dragons hatch. There was an interview with George R.R. Martin. I think right after. We saw him at the tattered cover. I think it was right after the 3rd book published. And somebody had asked, like, oh my God, it's so cool she's immune to fire. And he was like, no. That was a one-time magical occurrence. That'll never happen again. which the show broke over its knee. But anyways, um, I don't know if Evangeline's power is like that. Like if this was just this one time the Emperor shone his light upon her. She's not fully a saint. She's just kind of, she was a conduit for the Emperor's grace,
Mm-hmm.
and now she's done.
Oh, he had a
Now
mission.
she has to go pinch herself.
He had a mission for her, and now it's over. You know, it's kind of like we talk about from Plague War. Is the girl a saint? Is she not a saint? In a way, it doesn't matter because when her power was spent up, that was it.
Yep. That was just it. That was done. I also don't know if she's like Saint Sabbath. So Saint Sabbath, when she comes back in the book in which Saint Sabbath comes back, this young girl claims she's like, "Oh, I'm Sabbath reborn. I'm Sabbath," and all these priests are like, "Yeah, she's totally Sabbath," but everyone around her is like, "No, there's nothing special about you at all. You're not a saint." And then an incident happens, an event occurs, and then she's the saint. So I don't know if it's like and I can't remember now because it's been like 10 years since I read this book, but I don't know if it was like she was like possessed, as it were, by the saint, or if it like awakened the sainthood in her. I don't know if Evangeline is on that same journey where she was kind of a conduit. She hasn't reached full sainthood yet. She hasn't sacrificed in the way that like Celestine has sacrificed. Which on one hand, when Evangeline was talking about how she'd sacrificed, I was like, you should talk with Celestine for a bit, because I feel like I feel like she's maybe got hit a little harder with the sacrifice stick.
Yeah, especially when you read like what she goes through. Sometimes she dies,
Yeah.
and somehow she sticks through it.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. Now, this is something that I'm unsure of. In the lore, in the original, the OG lore, like pre-Andy Clark's book, Celestine went through a period where she was a Repentia. She was a Sister Supreme, and I don't know if that happened, if that probably still is canon with Andy Clark's book, which I like his origin story for her much better, having been on Terra. I don't know if that can still fit in there, that she undergoes this period of Repentia. So I don't know if that's what Evangeline, like if they're making their way toward having a new saint. I don't know. I'm curious. I'll be interested to see what happens to her after she goes through that. Will she become more confident? Will she stop questioning?
So it sounds like you think there's going to be another one?
I do. Like, didn't you feel like the ending kind of set up?
Honestly, I couldn't tell because I'm looking at Games Workshop as a whole, and they have been over the last, I would say, 6 months to a year, been really pushing the Adeptus Sororitas,
Yes.
and with their models and codices and things like that. So some of their books have been kind of pushing that as well. Whereas, you know, in the past before, you might get a mention of Battle Sisters, but not very often.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this one, you know, calling it an Adeptus Sororitas novel, what it kind of came across to me is that there's going to be more Adeptus Sororitas novels, but maybe not about Evangeline. Maybe just some more going through other parts of the sisterhood of what they're going through in this post-Rift era.
And you could be right there, because you have the Celestine book, you have this, you have David Annandale is writing a book about the heretic saint. It's like Ephariel, or anyway, it starts with an E. The Heretic Saint, that's another book that's coming out. I'm very curious about that one. I'm actually wondering, because they're doing special editions for all of the saint. I'm wondering if this is going to become like a set. Like there's going to be a saint set, which I would have liked more saint, if that's the case. But you could be right. It could have just been an end, and like, hey, look, Rivara's going to go home. Mm-hmm. Evangeline's going to become a Repentia, and that's their story. That's how their journey ends, or a new journey begins for them. You could be right. I don't know. I got to the end and was like, okay. As I said, I liked it. I don't really care what happens with Rivara.
No, I don't care about that. Now, if there is a sequel and it's about how Ashava takes over, I'm down.
Down, totally down. I would actually be down if they continued with Rivara's journey, but we got to see from Yumiya and Zorik's point of view.
Okay, I'd be down with that.
I would totally be down with that. If we got to be, especially Yumiya, that character to me, she was so interesting. And if she wanted to, with that female focused, would happily follow Yumiya into battle. And that would actually kind of make it interesting if every, like, as you progress the story, if you got to see from these different people's points of view, that would actually keep it pretty cool. Yeah, I would read that.
Yeah.
I would read that. But so we go from this book to going back to Space Marines with, I think we've said Andy Clark's name like 6 times, to
oh, maybe he'll appear.
Damn it. Well,
we should have turned off the lights and got in front of a mirror. Dang it.
We had to get in front of the mirror. It has to be like 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's true.
We need to be in our pajamas.
Wait, 2 o'clock in the morning our time, or 2 o'clock in the morning his time?
Oh, I think it's like that now, isn't it? Time zones. We need to be in our pajamas, you know. We need to like drink way too much soda and eat too much candy.
My headgear doesn't fit me anymore.
Braid each other's hair.
Sleepover.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, he did not appear. For me to just be like, hi. So, we're continuing with our series of the Space Marine Conquests. I still attest should be called Space Marines Revelations.
Well, I'll let you know, because I am reading the one that we skipped. The 4th one of Honor and Iron.
Oh, right. The Ian St. Martin one.
Yeah. I'll let you know if there's a revelation in there.
Yeah, but I think we were both pretty excited. Oh, can I actually say one of the little things? This is just one of those dumb little graphical notes that I like, but all of the chapters have the
fist.
I liked that. That was a nice little touch. We both were very excited for this. We both really like Andy Clark. We both like the librarians. Imperial Fist librarian, I don't know that I've seen before. So we've been pretty...
Like, what do builder librarians do?
They build libraries. Oh, duh.
True.
Jeez. It's in the title. No, we were both pretty stoked for this. So I'm pretty excited for this one. I think with Apocalypse and... oh, shoot. The Dark Angels one that we both really liked.
Oh, War of Secrets?
War of Secrets. I wanted to say War of Lies, but I was like, that's not right.
Close.
And with the Dark Angels, probably more accurate.
Right.
Secrets is just a nice word for lies. I think we've enjoyed this series pretty well. So I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a pretty good book to follow up on.
Yep. I will admit I'm a basic bitch, and I like the Space Marine stuff. So I know you were all worried about being a basic bitch with, not being too happy about these last 2 books we've read that were not about Space Marines. I'll own it. I like the Space Marines.
Well, I did feel better because then I remembered that, how much we liked Celestine and how much I liked Honorbound. And
oh, Honorbound was great.
I liked Honorbound more.
I mean, I will buy a sequel. I'll buy more Severina Rain.
Day 1.
Yeah, totally.
They should do a special edition of one of those because I would buy it. I'd buy the heck out of it. Yeah, so that I felt a little better and a little less basic.
We own your basicness. I mean, seriously, when you play the game, like, what models do you buy? Do you buy the little Astra Militarum? No, you get the Space Marines, whether they're traitor,
Imperial Guard.
Whether they are traitor or loyalist. That's usually what you play with when you're painting your little angry dolls.
They are angry. Yeah, mine have tentacles. I like it. Oh, and I also forgot how much I like the Carrion Throne, and that was also People's. So see,
yes,
all better now. So
so Watchers of the Throne's technically not Space Marines.
True.
I mean, Custodes
True.
not a Space Marine. They don't leave Terra.
Sisters of Silence are pretty much just normal people, as in they're not post-human, and politician man politicianing.
Yeah. All right.
All right, you want to take us out?
I think we're hemming and hawing here like long enough, and
we are.
Yeah, we are. So you have listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Mark of Faith by Rachel Harrison. Be sure to join us for our next book, Fist of the Imperium by Andy Clark. So one quick thing, Black Library, like, why is this not special edition? Like, why did you just do a special edition in the middle, but not any of the others?
I think somebody read Apocalypse and was like, holy shit. And they did a special edition. Yeah. Somebody was like, Saint Dreadnought?
Saint Dreadnought. I'm OCD. I like my things to match. I'm just saying. Anyway. But we are an unofficial book club and are not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those wonderful things to the vidcast on YouTube or to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. So please stay a while and read from a crag. Good night, everybody.
Good night.